Good evening, everyone. I am Marcia Marins, and I am a member of the League of Women Voters of Chautauqua County. I am former state president of the League of Women Voters of New York State, and was a member of the League of Women Voters of the United States. We are pleased to present our Meet the Candidates tonight. Our role is to let the candidates talk as directly to the people as possible. We let the candidates challenge each other on the facts. Journalists, pundits, and voters will have an opportunity to fact check afterwards. It's a debate. We, like a referee, enforce the rules and the time and simply stay out of the way. Our timekeeper is there. Percy, raise your hand. Keep an eye on her, candidates, because we will. The debate gives the public a means of forming a first-hand judgment of the candidates, and also serves the candidates because it gives them an opportunity to present their views. We have not given these candidates these questions in advance, except for the first one. You can ask them about any issues that you care about, and they will respond unscripted, so you can see how well they can think on their feet, so to speak, because they're seated. The League of Women Voters is a trusted, nonpartisan political organization. The League places an emphasis on getting out the vote, voter registration drives, Take Me to Vote programs in elementary schools, and efforts to streamline voter registration laws. These are all a continuing part of League activities. May I present my co-moderator, Judy Reynolds.
Here are some things that you should pay attention to. What issues are the most important to you? If they have not touched your issue, please ask about it. How do they answer questions? Do they really answer the question or deflect? Are they specific? Are they sincere? Are they knowledgeable? It's good to have a conversation with your friends and family about what you heard tonight. Did anything sway you? Did you learn anything new?
For the first part, we are going to welcome candidates this evening who are running to be the legislator representing District 1 in Chautauqua County, Kevin Muldowney and Ronald Hall. Candidates will have 2 minutes to respond to a question they received prior to this meeting and include a brief presentation discussing their qualifications. After the opening statements, candidates will have the ability to question one another, and members of the audience will be urged to ask questions of any candidate or all the candidates. Each reply will be limited to 2 minutes.
If a question is addressed to a specific candidate, others will be welcome to add comments or replies of their own. Candidates will also be able to rebut or challenge one another, limited to 1 minute. Then there will be a 2-minute closing statement. Here's the question. What do you consider the most pressing issue facing the county, and what would you do to resolve it if elected? We will begin with Mr. Hall.
Thank you. Good evening. First, I would like to thank the League of Women Voters for sponsoring this and putting this on, as they do every year with candidates. I also like to thank Dunkirk Access for putting this on TV, or the internet, or wherever it's going. A couple issues. First, I'd like to introduce myself. I am Ron Hall, or on the ballot is Ronald Hall. I've been involved in this community for 40, 50 years. I've served in a number of capacities, always in leadership roles, starting with, I've been on city council, city clerk, I've been director of central information services for the county, under Andy Goodell, where I got the opportunity to work with every department in county government, which I think is very important for this role. So I understand their operation very well. I've headed up a lot of local boards and so on. My wife and I own a business in town here, Hometown Insurance, right in the heart of this district. The reason I am running is because I believe this district is one of the worst shape in any district in the county. All the closings are happening in this district. Downtown is empty in this district. Hospitals leaving this district. NRG is closed in this district. That needs to be addressed. I believe I have some answers you'll hear later this evening to address some of those issues. As for the question that you did ask, I don't think you could nail it down to just one main issue. I think if you did, it'd be under the umbrella of economic development. However, under that umbrella, we need to get people working, and we need to get them off of welfare and back to work, particularly in this district. And that runs alongside all that is the drug and crime problem that we have too. That's all tied together. And I see I've just got to 30 seconds. We're probably down to about 10, so thank you very much.
You really can go to the very...
That's okay.
All right.
Mr. Muldowney.
Okay, I also would like to thank the League of Women Voters, along with the City of Dunkirk, for putting on this program this evening. First of all, I am Kevin Muldowney. I currently represent District 1 for the last 4 years in Chautauqua County government. I'm proud to be on the Audit and Control Committee for the last 4 years. That is the committee that all the finances that come through the county have to go through and be discussed before it goes to the floor. I'm also on the Administration Committee for the last 4 years. I'm currently married to, I'm married.
That's why I left the house.
I'm married to Mary Beth Muldowney and my 2 sons, Patrick and Daniel. Patrick just graduated from high school, and Daniel's a junior at the new P-Tech program, which we're very proud of. I mentioned that I was in this room for 10 years. I was very proud to serve as a city councilman for 10 years, and we did an awful lot of good projects over those 10 years. I think our biggest problem, and I think it's a little bit twofold, it's definitely workforce development. I think it's our county executive, as most people know, in his first 100 days, went and visited 107 businesses in Chautauqua County and found out that there was over 700 jobs available as a result of those visits. But we need the workforce. We need people qualified to show up to work and have the skills to fill those jobs. And hopefully, by supporting programs like P-Tech and workforce development that we've done already, that we're going to continue to create more jobs and have jobs filled by qualified people. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So now we're going to open our meeting to a question and answer format, and we hope that their presentations brought some questions to your minds. If you are watching this at home, you can call 665-1221, and a League of Women Voters member will answer the phone and record your question. That's 665-1221. For those in the audience, if you wish to ask a question, please stand. There is a mic and a podium. We prefer that you do not make statements. Our interest lies in hearing candidates' responses, so ask a question. If you are shy and you're nervous in front of a microphone, raise your hand and somebody will give you an index card to write your question, and they will be screened for repetitiveness and appropriateness, so it may not be asked. Again, the phone number is 665-1221. Responses to questions will be 2 minutes. Rebuttals are limited to 1 minute, and there will be no counter rebuttals. Our next question is one that was submitted.
This is Senate.
Sorry,
Yeah.
that one is not appropriate.
Okay.
It's for the next shift.
How is your district better off than it was when you were elected? And what have you done personally to make it better?
Mr. Muldowney.
guess that would be me, because I was the one elected for the last 4 years. We, at the county level, have worked very well together, and for the last 4 years, we've been able to cut the taxes in Chautauqua County without cutting any services that the county taxpayers have. So I take great pride in working with the other side, along with 4 years in the Audit and Control Committee to cut taxes the last 4 years. The county executive gave us a nice qualified budget, certified, and the Audit and Control Committee this year was able to reduce his budget and give a tax cut as a result of that. And I think as a result of that, people in my district pay less taxes.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions from the audience?
Can I rebut?
You can rebut.
Okay, thank you. A couple things. Just because somebody like Mr. Brill is doing a good job and you're on the, doesn't mean you're doing the job. If you're on a plane and it lands, you didn't land that plane, the pilot did, number one. Number two, I've read every word of every minute of Mr. Muldowney's committees he's been on. He hasn't done much, and that is why I'm running. And also, this whole thing about lowering taxes, that's fine, but first of all, the overestimated revenues one year, so they had to dip into the fund balance. Another year, they had to use bed tax monies to get it down. And a lot of times, which is an old trick, it's been going on since I was up here years ago, they move a lot of things into the Department of Social Services so they can get reimbursements. And I'm getting the card again, so that's it.
Thank you. Are there any questions from the audience? It's a nice group here. You have a question?
It's not so nice. I was actually the one that wrote down that question, and Mr. Muldowney, I'd like to ask you, and give you the softball again, one big time. You've had 4 years. What have you done for District 1 specifically,
Okay? Well, first of all,
besides lower taxes?
Thank you. You may sit now.
Well, first of all, we have supported your boat races. We came in with about $75,000 last year of bed tax money to make help that event occur. We're also coming in this year with over $40,000 to help with the event. And I think the way we looked at it is it's a team effort. Okay, it is the county executive who directs the programs and puts out the budget, but it's the county legislature that has to approve it and make cuts wherever they see fit, and talk and discuss it, and get the thing done and get the budget done. So economic development, IDA, they're out there all day long looking at businesses. We toured Special Metals, doing very well. There's some IDA assistance in that. Empire State Development, they've looked at a number of different businesses in District 1. As a county legislator, our main role is to pass the county budget and try to help our taxpayers in whatever services the county offers. And I think I've done that. Thank you.
Thank you. Any question? I don't think that needs another rebuttal.
Oh, whoa, that's a new question.
It's the same, wasn't that, did you reiterate the first question that you submitted?
I asked him to...
You may have a minute rebuttal.
Okay, first of all, I want to talk about the bed tax. I would like to see sponsorship prospectuses go in before bed tax money is awarded and audits done after the bed tax money, including the boat races. I've heard numbers, 15, 20 million, 100,000 people, all these numbers. I want to see if they're actually justified, number one. Number two, we talked about Mr. Muldowney talked about the IDA. The IDA has an office right down here in our district. Just look out the street. This doesn't pass the eye test. This street's all closed. So I like to tap into those resources right down the street here, get them active in our community, along with the development department for the city of Dunkirk and everybody else. We need to pull together. And I got the card. That's it.
Thank you. Any questions from the audience? You can call in at 665-1221 if you wish to call in a question. Next question was submitted, and it is, what would you do to bring jobs to our county that has not already been done? This is for both candidates, and we'll start with Mr. Hall.
One thing we need in this district specifically is we need a stronger welfare to work program. And the county has some leeway in that program. Right now, if I go to hire an employee on the welfare, they don't show up for work on Monday morning, they get 14 days for a conciliatory hearing, then you get another 15 days for another hearing, so it can last 4 to 5 months. That process can be expedited at the county level, where the calls go out on Monday morning, the letters go out, where are you, why aren't you working? The hearings get processed. We need to get, I'm tired of going out and seeing everybody walking around during the daytime here in town. We need to get a better welfare to work program if we want jobs around this area, to start with.
Thank you. Did you want to respond?
Yeah, my understanding is the county does have some work to welfare program, but it's controlled by New York State Legislature. And the rules and regs that are written for that program are written by the New York State Legislature. And I don't believe we have that control to change the program. It sounds good, but I don't believe that we do have that authority to do it.
I checked with the state, we do have that control within the realm of how we process those. The regs are written by the state, but how we handle those regs are within the control of our Department of Social Services. I checked with the state on that. So I'm telling you, we can modify that. We can expedite that process.
Thank you. We will go on now.
The county and local agencies have been doing a lot to make treatment and drug court available, and workforce development has been undertaken by many public and private agencies. What would you do that isn't being done?
Question is for both candidates. Mr. Muldowney?
Well, I have attended in this room and also in the city of Jamestown many graduations of the drug court, and I'm a big fan of the drug court. Everybody knows in this room and in this audience that addiction is a very tough thing to overcome, and that there has to be different exceptions and working with people, and I think both drug courts in both ends of the county have done a great job. There's also a mental health court in Mayville also that, because it's a three-pronged problem. It's just not drugs. It could be mental health. It could be domestic violence, all put together. And then you expect somebody to try to get to work every day. So there has to be a three-pronged situation, and I think we're doing that. Could we do it a little better? Could we fund it a little more? Could we make it mandatory in the local courts? Maybe. The local courts are controlled by New York State. I'm not saying that the county doesn't have the authority in the county government. I mean, it's done by a judge and the elected officials, elected judges in that. But I think we've done a lot. We sure have to do a lot more. But I think the programs are in place, and hopefully they're being used.
All right, make sure the microphones are at your mouths.
Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now?
Yeah, get real close.
Okay, I agree with Kevin on a lot of those things. It's an illness. It's not just something like old school people say, I arrest them, or say you can't arrest your way out of drug problems. You just can't do it. That's one component. And anybody knows me, knows I've been active on a lot of campaigns. I did help Mr. Bellman with his drug policy originally, which he's using right now. The only problem I have with that is it's now getting lost a bit in committee. I would like to see that utilized better. There's a good program in place, I believe, but I'd like to see it get out of government, get on the streets and get these things fixed. This is not a problem that drugs don't know any boundaries. They don't have any borders. And this is not, they don't discriminate towards age, race, anything. This is a major, major problem in this area specifically. I mean, we need to get that drug task force up here and get them active. And also the counseling and so on. But I do thoroughly agree that these other nonprofits are really stepping up to the plate. I've been involved with a lot of nonprofits locally, and they do step up. They can only do so much. Drug court, I believe Walt Drag started that in the city. It was a great idea. We just have to keep these resources coming. We're not alone in this fight. Thank you.
Thank you. Would you support a surcharge on plastic bags in the county? Why or why not? We'll begin with Mr. Hall.
No, I don't support new surcharges or taxes on anything. I am very moderate when it comes to the, maybe a little bit liberal when it comes to environment, but I don't like taxes or surcharges on anything, because that's a slippery slope. Once you start putting surcharges and taxes on, what's next? So no, I do not support it.
Mr. Muldowney?
I do not also. I think it's just one more obstacle small business has to, handle. As a small business owner myself, I do see so many different, I guess I gotta lower this, different obstacles to run a small business as we see, and all across the country. Small business is a tough thing to run, and we're experiencing that in the city of Dunkirk. There's no question of that, but I think the IDA, it plays a role, the City Development Office plays a role, and we have to come up with a nice place to live and work, which I think we have.
Thank you very much. Anybody in the audience have a question for any of the candidates? This is a very tame, do you have a question? Very tame audience, really well behaved.
Wait the next debate.
My question is to Mr. Hall,
Yes.
primarily because you raised the question of crime in the city of Dunkirk.
Can you get closer to the mic? I don't know.
Yeah, you raised the question of crime in the city of Dunkirk. I've just returned from an extended period of work as a documentary filmmaker in Texas, and Texas is getting approximately 1 million people coming across the border illegally every year. And the program there is, I'll make this quick, but the program there is catch and release. They apprehend them, they hold them for 20 days, and then they release them. They release them into the United States, all over the United States. And that's causing some serious problems because many of the governments don't know that they're getting these people. I was wondering if you're aware of this problem, and that's primarily it, and what kind of effect that this immigration is having on smaller cities like Dunkirk and Jamestown.
I'm not aware of an illegal immigration problem in Dunkirk. I am aware of a massive immigration, I don't want to call it a problem, but a situation that's happened within the last couple of years here. And my whole idea about crime is there needs to be better communication. We've just had a bad run here in crime. Once people are off the school district property, it's not our problem. City, it's not our problem. We need to get people together. I really believe we need to get the school district talking to the city, talking to the sheriffs, talking to the police. We need to get a better handle on this. That last incident with this poor girl that got stabbed to death, that started as a fight in the school. I knew that. I'm some old guy in Dunkirk. Well, I know. But I knew that. It was a fight in school, and it migrated, and all of a sudden, it wasn't the girls that were fighting. It migrated over here. So we do have a serious crime problem going on right now on drug. We can't put our heads in the sand on this. We need communication. I'm not aware of anything that's like the catch and release that's going. I'm aware of it nationally, but I'm not aware of that happening locally.
Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, there is no surprise that there is a crime problem in, Dunkirk and Chautauqua County and across the country. We did get some good news with the sheriff just announcing in the Observer not too long ago that there is good cooperation for first time in quite a while with both drug task force, the Southern Tier Drug Task Force, and the Jamestown City Drug Task Force. I think that's positive news because as people come across crime, they've got to be on the same page and they got to be talking to each other. We don't have enough money and resources to go around when we're duplicating services. And I think I want to give the sheriff good credit, and I want to give all the police chiefs that now are talking to each other and working together. There's no quick solution, there's no easy solution, but at least people are talking together and trying to help the problem. Thank you.
The phone number is 665-1221. If you have a question, you can call it in, and we'll be happy to air it during this debate. Are there any questions from the audience? All right, next question.
What would you do to reduce vacant buildings in the downtown areas, excuse me, of our county? Who would like to start?
Mr. Hall?
I'll start. Well, I'm going to focus on our downtown area in this district. Like I've already mentioned, we have an IDA down the street, we have a Department of Development. I looked into doing a local development. When I did, this is under the previous mayoral administration, they had a whole list of people interested in developing here. I do not know if Rebecca at the city still has that type of list. But we have an IDA office down the street, we have a development office here, we have a lot of people, we have the college, we have the incubator, we have a lot of people being paid to develop. The only thing we're missing is development. I think we have to get these people together. I think if there are people that are interested, start filling these buildings. There are little shops and so on, I don't care. I almost put our business downtown here, but it's too vacant, to be very honest. I like where we're at out there. Thank you.
I disagree. I think there's an awful lot of development going on in Chautauqua County, and yes, Central Avenue, retail development is tough. You know, it's small business, it's, you know, facing the internet sales, and they're all privately owned. Now, I own a business and I work with the IDA, I work with the City Development Office on different development projects. I had the privilege of working with Senator Young over development for over 10 years, and people are talking together. We have development, we have businesses, industries that are paying taxes, providing jobs. Our problem is we need qualified workforce to fill these jobs, and that, in my opinion, is the most important part. And once we do that, I think you will see some retail, small retail. It's got to be a different type of retail, you know, a niche kind of like what we did with the boardwalk. Those are nice little shops. No reason, I agree, no reason that we couldn't do something in like an Elmwood Village kind of deal, but it would be City of Dunkirk, Central Avenue, some kind of something. I have a lot of faith that there is a lot of development, like I'm repeating myself, but I think those jobs, once they are filled and good paying jobs, I think there'll be other services needed.
Thank you very much. Yes. Mary, you can come in, just kind of walk quietly around. What do you propose, what do you propose to protect our lakefront and township from turbines? Mr. Muldowney.
Well, I'm against them. I don't think that the wind turbines, we passed legislation this year or last year regarding big wind turbine projects from happening with big incentives. But I believe that the wind turbines out in the lake really would do nothing for economic development, tourism. Let's face it, we are a waterfront community, and I feel that that's one of our biggest tickets to successful economic development. And I think we see it. We see it in the summer, and we got to find a different way to market it in the winter. But again, we're a lakefront community, and I think many communities would die to have what we have.
Thank you. Mr. Hall.
I'm against the turbines, to be very honest. I do realize that I'm aware that the county legislature passed something forbidding pilots be above a certain megawatt production. That's great. However, there's already, I think, the 3 already got pilots, and that bothers me. Do not think they add anything to the community. I applaud the efforts of the Lighthouse Board for shooting down that little thing that nobody even knew was coming around. They came to put monitors. People approached them about putting monitors on their property to start monitoring the wind. That's the first stage of putting windmills out here. I do not want them. I'm very much against it.
At the podium.
Hi. I'm going to do a follow-up about your IDA comments. the IDA, the Chautauqua County IDA at this point does not support retail businesses. The IDA is in charge of
Do you have a question?
helping. Yes, I have to say the information first so they can understand the question. So the IDA only handles manufacturing and industrial jobs. Am I correct,
Right.
Mr. Muldowney? So what would you do, or would you be willing, either of you, to change that so then IDA can actually help retail? Because you're talking about an empty Central Avenue and then saying that the IDA should step up when they cannot. So would you change that so they could?
Thank you.
Okay, there's two issues here. One, there's also a department, now it's under a Deputy County Executive in Development. That is a county position. That's kind of quasi, partially with the IDA, so they could be involved. And I would vote to change that. IDA is a separate board, people always claim, but it's a very close relationship. I would change that because we have to fill this downtown.
Would you sponsor a resolution to change that?
Absolutely.
You need to sit down now.
Absolutely, I
Let them
would.
answer. It's not your debate.
Absolutely, I would.
Thank you,
But-
Mr. Mul. Oh,
We can debate things once, that's fine.
No, that's not.
I don't think I would. I think the IDA is there for a purpose. I think it's there for industrial, as they say, industrial development agency. I think it does support economic development. It does support tourism industry that helps create jobs and creates money into our community. But at the time, and I'm not, you would know better than me, what the DLDC is, and for instance, when I was on the city council, we put a storefront on P&G, and it's still there today, probably 15 years later. Unfortunately, the people worked very, very hard for 25 years and had a right to retire. Unfortunately, they weren't able to sell the business. We worked with people in Ehlers to hopefully save over 100-year-old business, which had some really unique different products that we tried to market. So no, I don't think I would support that. I just feel that there's only so much money to go around, and I think there are other avenues that you could go. I also think that HUD plays a role in some kind of economic development. And again, any economic development project, as probably everybody knows, there's all kinds of different funding streams. You get 10, what is it, 30, 40, 60, something like that, different lenders to come into a project. So I just wouldn't, I feel comfortable supporting that.
Thank you. Any other questions from the audience at this point? You can call in at 665-1221. And here's our next question.
Do you have a plan, excuse me, for restoring Chautauqua Lake? If so, what are its main points?
Who would like to jump in? Okay.
Deb, go.
Well, I think there is. I think there's a current plan right now that I got to give our current county executive all kinds of support on. He's the one taking the leadership role to get all the communities around Chautauqua Lake to act as one governing body, to speak as one, I should say. And that we have never seen that happen before. We all know that there's a weed problem. There's a weed problem, and how we solve it. Do we solve it by cutting? Do we solve it by chemicals? And that's, you can go back and forth on that issue, but some way it's got to be solved, because we know that Chautauqua Lake is one of our biggest, I think, the biggest economic development tools for Chautauqua County. And we saw a beautiful hotel built in Celeron. They expect the lake to be, weed-free. So I think the plan is in place, and I'm very positive that it's going to bring good things to Chautauqua Lake.
Thank you, Mr. Hall.
I agree that the Chautauqua Lake needs to be addressed. I applaud the efforts of Mr. Brello for bringing almost all, but not all, almost all the interested parties to the table together. I think that's a major accomplishment. Now, there's two questions. It's not proven yet what'll work on there. And before you start funding something, let's figure out what's going to work before we fund it. And then the second problem is we've lost a major stream of funding when Senator Young quit. There was $150,000 right there she used to get for us. And now we don't have that clout. I know that there's ideas to initiate, to start another taxing entity around the lake. I don't go for that. I do not want to start any more taxing in this county. I mean, we talk about Albany. We always blame Albany for everything, and I agree, Albany's a mess, but we have to deal with the cards we're dealt. And we can't start our own taxing, our own fees, our own everything. We're just going to drive people further away. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Looks like nobody's going to raise their hand, so I'll just keep going here. What would you do to encourage local government mergers or dissolution? And we'll start with Mr. Hall.
There is a program that the guy, once again, Platt George, the county executive, has been involved with. There's also initiatives driven by the state to merge county, and I think there's way too many. When I was with the county way back, there were, I forget the number, 60-some taxing entities in the county. That number is it's still changed. It's barely changed 20, 30 years later. There has to be mergers, there has to be shared services. And I'll be very blunt, we do not need a sheriff's department, a Dunkirk police, and Fredonia police. We don't need all these in this area. We don't need all these communities, all these little hamlets, all these little school districts and everything. There's just too much government in this county. For this little county, there's too much government, too many taxes. It's hurting us.
Thank you, Mr. Muldowney.
I don't disagree, but you know what? It's got to be made by the community itself. We have school districts that have smaller sizes, and it would make sense to be able to merge and combine and offer the students more AP classes, you know. But it's got to be made by those people that are in the district. You know, it's always good, you know, and it's always good for somebody else to merge, but don't touch my school district, or don't touch my city, or the village really is better than the town. And by the way the state law is right now, the village would have to merge into the township. The city and the town, let's just say the city and the town of Dunkirk, which is District 1, it would have to be a special act of the state legislature in order to merge a town into a city, or a city into a town. The concept is right. We do have, but we have to incentivize. And the state legislature did incentivize giving school districts over a 15-year tax savings by merging. Chautauqua Lake was one of them. But how many did we see as a result of that? You know, my opinion is that we need to redraw lines so half of a district goes with one side and the other half go in the other, because we don't want kids on a bus for an hour, especially elementary kids. Does New York State have too much government? Definitely does. And I think through George's leadership, we're seeing another village dissolving. And we would have liked to have seen, we were in the running for what, a $25 million grant through New York State, which would have combined two towns and dissolve a village. But unfortunately, we didn't get the grant.
Any questions from the audience? Again, you can call 665-1221. We have one or two more questions,
Okay.
but right now, here's our next question.
What would you do to reduce greenhouse gas emissions in the county? If not, why not?
I'll start, I guess. I don't think there's a lot more we can do. I believe that one of the reasons NRG is shut down is because of this stopping greenhouse gas in the agenda, and I think that hurt us. It hurt us big time. I'm not so sure there's a lot more we can do. We don't have any industry. We don't have anything doing this, except maybe our farms, which is the backbone of our economy here, is agriculture. So that's why not.
Thank you.
Well, I think the governor has initiated a new program that he wanted to be by 30, that everything would be wind and solar and
Green.
Green, thank you. And I don't think that's achievable, and I don't think that's a reasonable goal. I do think we do see solar panels, and we do see small wind on farms, and the state gives incentives along with the federal government, and that's great. But I'm not sure that by 2030 we should be completely free of that.
Lower the tip of your,
Oh, okay.
that's why we're losing your voice. Yeah.
This is for both candidates. What have you or will you do to help the county health department make sure that we have some type of rehabilitation clinics for the opioid crisis that both of you have mentioned is a problem, and especially in your district? How are you planning on helping the county health department
Thank you.
succeed?
Mr. Hall.
Sure. First of all, people think that a methadone clinic in Dunkirk is the answer to all our drug. It's not. There's already Suboxone we're using. There's already Vivitrol. There's a lot of programs already in place in this county. I would like to see one. They had some problems bringing one in because one put near a school, which I agree with the people from the school. But I'm kind of biased, my granddaughter goes there. But so I would work with the health department if they needed some assistance. But I'd be very involved to make sure what exactly is going in and where it's going in. There are already problems. These clinics are not the only answer. People think we're going to cure Dunkirk drug problem by bringing in some clinic. It's not going to happen. It's a whole process that's going to have to take place. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Muldowney?
I agree, but I also feel that there are currently treatment centers in the county that are currently helping with the opioid problem. Now, you do, as a result of the state changing the Medicaid, that you do see all these out-of-town cab companies providing transportation to centers somewhere in Buffalo. I'm just not a big fan of the methadone treatment either. I don't claim to be an expert on it, but I just feel like there are programs already in place, and that we should maybe do a better job of making them aware, the public aware of them. But I think it's a big problem wherever you go, and I do feel like we are treating them now.
Thank you very much. Any questions from the audience?
What are you shaking your head for?
Hi, being that you've both stated previously that you both support the drug court program, being that we don't really have a rehab facility in our county, what would you do in order to keep those clients that are utilizing drug court in our county to seek treatment?
As in housing? Is that what you're talking about?
Well, most of the times when they do get placed in county, as in jail, they have to await a bed in Erie County or Syracuse, or 9 times out of 10 they're waiting for beds to seek help that are out of county. So what can we utilize, or what can we establish in the area in order to help our county residents stay in county to seek the treatment that you approve of?
Okay.
Ouch. Thank you. Mr. Muldowney?
Yeah, my understanding, there are beds available in Jamestown and in Irving, and that they are available. So unless I hear differently, I think that there are. I know I've gone through the Jamestown facility, and I know that Irving, there are beds available.
Thank you. Mr. Hall?
There are beds available. I don't know if there's enough, but how would we ever know there's enough? I mean, it's just going to. So I agree with Kevin on that issue. There are beds. We could probably use more beds. I know that the sheriff, when he's running, was advocating for more treatment facilities. However, I don't know when enough is enough. I mean, we've got a major problem. So I don't know what the formula is or how many beds we need, to tell you the truth.
Okay. Do you have any questions of each other before we have a concluding statement, which will be 2 minutes? And we will begin with Mr. Hall.
Well, we got another question out here. I'm sorry.
Oh, there was a question.
Okay.
Well,
I can address it from here.
Yes, you can.
What do you foresee becoming of the steam station? And is there any movement that either of you gentlemen know to bring that back online with natural gas or what?
I did a lot of research on that steam station when we went down. Worked a little bit with Andy Goodell, worked with the mayor on, wrote some things to the governor for them. I gotta tell you the truth. I think, I don't ever see it coming back to a coal plant in this state. I think the natural gas thing is iffy also. Some of the void has been filled already for the power they were generating. And I also believe that's why we're starting to attract a lot of these wind people. They think there's a big void here. I would like to see something done with that facility, absolutely. I'd love to see that come online as natural gas. And what happened was that got squashed by lawsuits, and then it got squashed when they started charging more for the interconnect down in Olean. That crushed us. I mean, my business is right there, my house is right out there. I would love to see that come back, but I just never see it coming back as a coal plant. And I don't think it's going to come as I'd certainly support natural gas, but I don't think it's coming.
Thank you. Mr. Muldowney?
Yeah, I think it's a very unfortunate situation. I mean, it's been a process, and the community has come together. Northern Chautauqua County came together in 90-degree heat when we had our hearing at Fredonia State. And I don't think we could ever have been prouder. There was 2,500 people there, and in 85-degree heat, 90-degree heat, we were serving ice cream and it was melting like anything. We really came together. We had the senior citizens, we had the Little League, we had the fire trucks. It was a community that shouted out and said, we need this, and it was a perfect example. We needed it. There was a power outage on that hot day. As Ron said, the lawsuits have kind of killed it. We also had a rally, which was really nice again, in 10-degree weather down at the boardwalk. And the community once again came together, state, federal, county, locals, trying to preserve that plant. And you know, it's sad that the situation that we're in now. I tend to agree that the way the state is going and the way the governor is talking about green energy, that coal will be a very unlikely situation. Now, we had the whole thing set up through Senator Young, and we were going to do natural gas, and we had the pipelines, and it was a win-win for the city of Dunkirk, and it was a win-win for New York State. New York State is getting power from one of the dirtiest coal plants in Ohio. You know, and it's just like, it's ridiculous that we say we have enough power and that another state should control our energy prices for our economic development. Talk about a failed policy there. We have 80 acres on Lake Erie. Could it be reused? I believe it could. Could it be a beautiful conference center and a hotel and I got to stop.
Thank you.
But it's a 10-year project, and we need vision.
Thank you very much.
I just want to add, that power is actually coming in from Pennsylvania, not Ohio. It's coming in from Homer City, Pennsylvania. It's one of the dirtiest coal plants in the country. It's coming in. Guess where it's coming into? A lot of it's coming to the Olean connection, where we can't get to. But Pennsylvania can.
Thank you.
Ours is killed.
Thank you very much. All right, so that concludes our debate part of our question and answer part of our debate, and now we'll have closing statements, and we will begin with Mr. Hall.
Okay, I was prepared to ask questions of each other. I want to tell people that I'm going to be out for you, the people. I believe my opponent has been invisible. I believe he's done some deals that may have not been. For us, when the hospital closed, his only comment was, I hear there's problems in Dunkirk. And I have the minutes right here. You know why that is? Because he has too many bosses. He's the assessor in Pomfret and Fredonia. He's not going to take a side against Fredonia getting a hospital. I believe the sale of the property out there was a little bit of inside information until he sold his property to a Phoenix. I have a problem with all that. I have a promise to people. I am not in this for ego. I'm not in it for money. I'm not in it to sell anything. I'm in this to help this district get stronger and better, because that's what we need. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Muldowney.
Yeah, I take great exception with those comments. You know, anybody that knows me, I sat here for 10 years on the city council with Dunkirk, and we developed the city, and we came together and worked with real good projects. boardwalk, lofts, incubator that was going to be built on Fredonia State Campus is now built in the downtown Dunkirk. Nice bike paths from one end of the city to the other. You know, anybody that really knows me, that's a line of crap, if you ask me. I mean, yes, I am the town assessor in the town of Pomfret, and I'm very proud of that. That's 15 years that I deal with taxes and assessments. Has nothing to do with my district. District 1, okay? I own a business. I'm very proud that I own a business. It's an old shovel factory that had 300 employees at one time. We have now since put $300,000 into roofs and garage doors and everything else you can imagine. But you know what? There's 20 people that work there now full-time with 28 different businesses. So I am creating economic development on my own. You know, and I took the chance of buying that land for 10 years, and I've owned it for 10 years, and I didn't know anything about who was buying it. And how dare a friend of mine make that kind of a comment that we go back 30 years. And you know what's also funny is I've been in this office 4 years. I've never heard a word from my opponent that I've been negligent or I've got too many bosses. You know what? This is a District 1. It's a part-time position. I've worked for the New York State Senate for 30 years. I brought those experiences to this job through the City Council, and I'm damn proud of it.
Thank you very much. That concludes part 1 of our debate night, and we'll do-si-do for about 2 minutes, and we'll have the candidates for State Senate come forward, please. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you, Marcia.
All right, we're here for part 2. Before I start rolling, I forgot to mention this, to turn off the sound of your phone. You can vibrate all you want, but it needs to be turned off because it gets disturbing. There is a number you can call, 665-1221, if you wish to phone in a question. We have a League of Women Voters member manning the phone, and she will be happy to write your question down and bring it to me. For this segment, we are welcoming the candidates for New York State Senate, George Borrello and Curtis Crandall. Once again, candidates will have 2 minutes to respond to a question they received prior to this meeting and include a brief presentation discussing their qualifications for the job. After the opening statements, the candidates will have the ability to question one another, and members of the audience will be urged to ask questions of any candidate or all the candidates. Each reply to a question will be limited to 2 minutes.
If a question is addressed to a specific candidate, others will be welcome to add comments or replies of their own. Candidates will also be able to rebut or challenge one another, limited to 1 minute. There will also be a 2 minute, right? 2 minute for a closing statement. So here's the question. What is the most urgent problem facing New York State today, and what, if anything, would you be able to do to help solve it? We will begin with Mr. Borrello.
Thank you. I'd like to, first of all, thank the League of Women Voters for putting on this Meet the Candidates night, and I'd like to thank you all for being here, and as well as Mr. Crandall for being here. I'm proud to have grown up here in northern Chautauqua County. I come from a working class family, and I was able to go to college. Shortly after college, I started my own business from nothing, and I built that business into a successful, nationally recognized supplier to the hospitality industry. In 2009, I ran for the county legislature because I wanted to affect positive change in our area. I wanted other people to understand what my wife and I knew when we moved back here. This is a wonderful, unique place that to live, to work, to raise a family. So we worked out very hard in the county legislature, and we lowered property taxes. We reduced government, starting with reducing the size of the legislature from 25 to 19 members. We set aside politics and started working together for the betterment of the people. And I'm proud to continue that now as our county executive, getting people to work together. As far as what the biggest challenge facing New York State is, without a doubt, it is our oppressive state government that has actually forced its New York City liberal radical agenda down our throats. It's eroded our manufacturing base, it's cost us jobs, it's driven our children away, and it has without a doubt left the rest of us behind to pay for this ridiculous out-of-control government. What I will do is, I'll show them what we've done here in Chautauqua County. We've set aside politics. We've worked together responsibly to make sure that we are keeping government efficient and effective. I'm very proud of that record here. It's a strong record that we have finally reduced the cycle of decline here in Chautauqua County. Good things are happening here, and I will go to Albany and work hard every single day. I will do the same thing I did here: effectively negotiate, work together, and collaborate to ensure that New York State is the best place in the world to live. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Crandall.
Thank you, and thanks for the opportunity to be here tonight. I am currently the chairman of the Board of Allegheny County, and I've had that position for 14 years. I'm the longest serving chairman in that position for the county. I've been a legislator since 2000. I have held all of the leadership positions in the county. Majority leader and Ways and Means and budget and so forth. I think that it's important, as you look at the difference between myself and Mr. Borello, to take a look at what's been happening with some of the ads that have been out there for our campaign. It appears to me that Mr. Borello is a hand-picked candidate by Mr. Flanagan, and there has been an awful lot of money that's been put into his campaign. I go to Albany if selected, not owing anyone for any favors like that. I would only you, the voters of the 57th District. New York is in problem. They have problems, and it has to do with jobs. It has to do with people leaving. We are now dropped down way below Texas, California, Florida in population. We're losing congressional representation in New York, and our difficult business environment, it was talked about before with the folks here at the county level. Places are empty, and we need to do something different than $1 billion Buffalo project and other things like that for economic development. We need to take a look at the environment and our high property taxes. We've lowered property taxes in Allegheny County 9 years in a row. We've retained our fund balance, and I would like to take that experience and the leadership that I have retained from Allegheny County to Albany.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that. Thank
So
you.
I get to respond to this allegation?
It's an opening statement, and it's not...
I would hope questions would come along that line.
Thank
as we
you.
proceed.
Sure they will.
I will handle that, I think. I think I'm pretty good at that part, at any rate. We will now open our meeting to a question and answer format, and we hope their presentations have some questions. If you wish to ask a question, please stand. You can come to the podium if you wish, or try to ask it from your seat. Do not make statements. We want to hear candidates' responses. You may phone 665-1221. Rebuttals are limited to 1 minute, and there are no cross rebuttals. The other thing I want to say is the audience, if I know there's a candidate up here that you really want to win, I appreciate if you save your applause for the end so that we don't have to stop and start. So thank you for that. Our next question from the podium, I guess.
Yes, I'm Mark Twitchell in Fredonia. I would appreciate the candidate's response to a wind turbine question, and it relates to recent publications in the Article 10 process. I'd like to know how the candidates feel about the disclosures that the typical 100 megawatt wind facility, roughly the size of Arkwright's, will reduce New York State power generation carbon emissions by 0.05%, and that the New York State Department of Public Service is prevented from using the Freedom of Information Act to find out how much less than 0.05%, which is 1/10 due to proprietary secrets.
You got the question?
Yes.
Who would like to go first?
I'm happy to go first. I think you all know that I have stood strong against this ridiculous wind turbine boondoggle that the governor has been forcing down our throat. But what you brought up, Mark, is an important point. This is not about the environment. I know we have this dog whistle of greenhouse gases, reduced greenhouse gases. We're not reducing anything. This is nothing but the biggest investment scam of the 21st century that's happening. And it's a bunch of slick snake oil salesmen with the help of the governor who's trying to run for president that are forcing these wind turbines down our throat. They are not efficient. We're not reducing greenhouse gas emissions. We are running transmission lines to the dirtiest coal plants in America, like Homer City, which was brought up previously, to back up this unreliable renewable energy project. The only thing green about this is money, and it's a lot of money going into a lot of pockets, including the governor's campaign fund. This is a travesty. I've been working hard against it. We fought against the wind turbines in the lake 10 years ago. We'll do it again, and I will not stand by and watch while these slick salesmen and a governor with a political agenda forces and blankets our area with these destructive wind turbines.
Thank you. Mr.
I
Crandall.
think if you look at any of those projects and you look at whether it's wind turbine, solar, none of them stand on their own as far as an investment. They have to be heavily subsidized, and that costs all of us. There are wind turbine projects that are being proposed and worked on across the 57th district, besides what's talked about here in Chautauqua County. And I'm not sure that anyone would say they're against any kind of an efficient or green energy, but you have to look at how these are put together and the monies that are poured into them. I think that my understanding is that we could utilize better the facility, the hydro facility in Niagara Falls, that's not to the capacity that it should be. We have in Allegheny County, Alfred State, they put together a house that's it's zero energy home, and there's a combination of thermal and along with solar that's being used for that, and it actually operates the house, and you can put energy back into the system. But you have to use a little common sense, and I'm not sure that that's been the approach when Albany says we're going to be, fossil-free by a certain date. We're a strong gas area in Allegheny County, Cattaraugus. I think that there can be better utilized methods that put those to work and use New York State resources versus Pennsylvania or Ohio or further.
Thank you.
Thank you both.
Thank you. Once you ask your question at the podium, you can sit down, so just in case there's a traffic jam, we don't have a problem. Are there any other questions from the audience? Yes.
My name is Austin Morgan. I'm the proud Democratic candidate in this race. Having worked in Albany, I know that one of Kathy Young's greatest strengths was her working in the Senate majority. As career politicians who have only served in the majority party in your counties, how do you propose to deliver the funding and legislation that our district needs while in the minority in Albany, with no say in the budget negotiations, committee hearings, or the daily active list?
This is for both candidates?
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Crandall, please.
Yeah, I think that's a good question. And I have, first of all, New York right now, obviously, with a Democrat governor and both houses being in control by the Democrat, puts either myself or Mr. Borrello at the bottom rung of a minority position, the Republican Senate. And I think that when I became a legislator, our board was split 7 and 8, and although we were of not a mix so much with party, there was certainly a mix, and no one was getting along making things happen. When I came on board, we started to attack things and work together, and I have said a good idea is a good idea, and I think that a good idea and a proposal that is good for the 57th district is also good for New York State. And I think that the experience that I have, 14 years as chairman in a leadership position, plus my experience as a legislator starting with in 2000, plus go back before that, 1984, I actually began on the town level. I think it far exceeds my opponent's year and a half in an executive position plus a few years as a legislator. And I would certainly like to be able to go on behalf of all of the people of the 57th District and apply some of that leadership in making proposals that are good for the 57th and good for New York State in general.
Thank you. Mr. Burrell.
Yeah, the question was a career politician. A career politician certainly sends the message that this is all I've done. Remind you that I have a very successful business now, and I'm currently one of those people that has to deal with the ridiculous, burdensome regulations in New York State every day. So far from a career politician. That's number one. Number two, I have a strong record of going above and beyond whatever elected position I've been in to ensure that things actually do get done. So being in the minority, not a problem for me. I will work hard every day. I'm going to swing the hammer hard every day, and I'm certainly going to negotiate to get the things that we need here in this district. I'll be a strong voice. I will send that message more than 300 miles back to Albany, ensure that our voice is heard loud and clear. And I can assure you that things will get done, just like they've gotten done here in Chautauqua County, despite all the oppressive regulations that we have to deal with, despite with all the unfunded mandates we have to deal with, despite the fact that we used to have a lot of rhetoric and not a lot getting done here in Chautauqua County. Because when I first became a county legislature, the county legislature was referred to by our newspaper as the useless 25. Now we've downsized that legislature and we've gotten things done. We've lowered property taxes. We've reduced the burden of government. Our property tax rate now is lower than it was in 2006. 13 years later, we went from being one of the highest county property tax rates in Western New York to now among the lowest. We can get things done. You just have to work hard. And that's what I've done as a businessman, as a county legislator, and as this county executive. And I will work very hard every single day as the senator for the 57th District of New York.
Thank you very much. Any questions from the audience? If you're at home, you can call 665-1221, and there's a question ambling up to the mic.
Yes, I guess it's to both of you, and it kind of piggybacks on the last question that was just asked. How does the rhetoric that's coming, we've heard a lot of it today, towards one party going to help you, especially being in the minority? And, you can decide who wants to answer that and who's done that. But
it's my turn to
how
answer.
is that going to affect how you're treated by the Democrats in the Senate and by the Democratic governor? Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Burrell.
Yeah, I have had a strong track record. When I first became a legislator, we were split 13-12. And we had a very simple philosophy when I first became a legislator, myself and the other freshman legislators, was if it's a good idea, we'll support it. If it's a bad idea, we won't, regardless of whichever party proposes that. We worked very hard to develop good relationships. And at the end of the day, I will tell you that we got good things accomplished. And what resulted was people recognized the efforts of myself and my fellow Republicans. And 4 years later, we went from having a one-person majority to having a supermajority in the county legislature, because we promoted those conservative Republican ideals, and we went from this county being majority registration of Democrats to now majority registration of Republicans. It was through good leadership and showing that those conservative ideals can produce results here in Chautauqua County.
Thank you. Do you want to respond, Mr. Crandall?
Yeah, I think that it's not fantasy land. Either myself or Mr. Borello, if we were to go to Albany, we're in a minority party in the Senate, and we would be the low man on the totem pole to start with. My position would be that certainly, like I said before, a good idea is a good idea. I have a track record that shows that those things can be brought forward and worked with those in opposition of them. And I appreciate Mr. Borello's position like that as well. But I think that this is a Republican primary, and the Republicans that are able to vote for me or Mr. Borello, I think, need to make a decision of who it is you'd like from the 57th to go up there and be up there, because I think that in time the pendulum is going to come swinging back. We can't come out of start this year with the legislation that has come out of Albany the way that it has with the abortion legislation, the marijuana, the illegals or undocumented driver's licenses, these proposals coming out without somehow that pendulum comes swinging back. When it does, I'd like to be in there. I'd like to have already established myself and be in a leadership position that will help the 57th district, I think, more so than my opponent.
Thank you. Any other questions from the audience? Yes.
I'm currently on a board for a local assisted living organization, and in New York State, we've seen the rising costs at the home as a result of the increase in the New York State minimum wage increases. Meanwhile, the Medicaid reimbursement from New York State is at $41.85 per day per resident. First of all, is this a topic that you are aware of? And second, what do you see in the future to get this Medicaid reimbursement in line with the true costs of care of our residents, of our elderly?
We'll begin with Mr. Crandall.
Well, I'm very aware of the, first of all, of the minimum wage. And that has hurt New York State, in my opinion. Right along the 57th district, we've seen businesses that have left and gone to other places. I can assure you that we've had a couple that have gone over the border into Pennsylvania because of that. It's put a burden on small business, and obviously it's put a burden on the lower pay scale of some of our healthcare facilities as well. New York State has a high-end Medicaid program. And going back, several congressmen, if you will, going back to Randy Cool, we talked about the maintenance of effort clause that's in the Medicaid program. And I think that that needs to be looked at. We certainly can't continue down the path that we are in having costs exceed reimbursements. It needs to have an overhaul or a look at. So I think that needs to happen. I don't think there's a magic bullet to your answer or to your question, a magic one-shot answer, but it's a big problem all across New York. And there again, I think that collaboratively across New York, if you can get some momentum to help take a look at that, there may be some solutions in the future.
Mr. Brillo.
Yeah, well, first of all, my wife and I certainly understand what's happening with the minimum wage as we employ nearly 200 people here in Chautauqua County, most of which are just summertime seasonal help, high school and college-age kids that were not for us, wouldn't have any other place to work. And then rising minimum wage means less kids are going to be working. That's unfortunate. And that's the vast, vast majority of people who are earning minimum wage are temporary employees, high school and college-age kids that are working. It's not the rhetoric that you hear about the family-sustaining wage. But as far as Medicaid, we spend a fortune on Medicaid. Here in Chautauqua County, we wire over $600,000 a week for our local share of Medicaid. It's an out-of-control program. They like to pat themselves on the back in Albany for limiting its growth to 3% per year. That's like telling a morbidly obese person that they're healthy because they only gained 50 pounds this year. I mean, it's an absolutely ridiculous, overburdened, bloated, corrupt program. And if we could have the opportunity to reform that program and be able to actually redirect some of those funds to the people that deserve those funds, the people that have paid into the system, that have worked hard, and that are now need that assistance because they're in a long-term care facility. Taking it away from those folks that use the emergency room as their primary care physician, or take a taxi every time that they have a hangnail to go to the emergency room. Direct the money away from there to the areas where it can be better utilized, the people that deserve it. That's what we have to do in New York State. Our program is already well-funded. It's just corrupt and bloated and goes to the wrong places.
Thank you very much. We have another question at the podium.
The state constitution states local officials must protect the health, safety, and welfare of all the people. What have you done as an official in Allegheny County to protect the people of your region from the industrial turbines?
Thank you.
I think that on the county level, we've actually, our legislature hasn't taken that up. And certainly hasn't taken it up in the way that I believe that Chautauqua has here in a direct request, if you will, to the IDA. So we have not taken a position on that. We have project that's going on in the northern part of the county that actually goes over into Cattaraugus County as well. And although that's split, the position of the people in Allegheny County are fairly supportive of those of that project. So we have not overridden their position.
Thank you. Thank
I
you.
see by your face you don't like that, but that's
It's not a matter of, it's between you guys. So thank you for your question. Any other questions from the audience?
In the previous debate, they talked about how Mr. Borello has gone to visit over 107 different businesses, and that he said that there were over 700 jobs that are needing workers right now. Did you, when you went to those places, find out what the average pay was from those places, and were those living wages?
Thank you.
Yeah, first of all, we did a detailed survey when we went to those. It's 107 businesses in the first 100 days. We've actually visited close to 200 now, and most of those visits were about 2 hours long. It wasn't a dog and pony show. We went in and took a picture and left. We did an in-depth study. We visited with those folks. We learned what their challenges were, what they felt the opportunity was for them in Chautauqua County. And we learned, number one, that the biggest problem they have is somebody that can pass a drug test and show up to work every day. And number two was that they lacked the people that had the skills to fill those open positions. So we did follow-up surveys, and we know that the average wage was rather high. In fact, I used those statistics in my State of the County last year to talk about the wages that were out there in those open positions, and they are family-sustaining wages for the most part. So there are good-paying jobs here. Our challenge is truly workforce. It's something I've been heavily focused on. It's not the political rhetoric, the dog whistle that there's no jobs here. That's not true. What we need to do is shift our focus. And we talked about reforming and changing the way we do things in New York State. We need to focus on workforce. We've changed that conversation here in Chautauqua County. I'm proud to see that JCC now, with some encouragement from me and a lot of others, has now shifted that focus. They just gave away 30 full-ride scholarships to kids that are going to their Manufacturing Technology Institute. Those are kids that will be able to fill jobs here, stay here, raise families here. That's the pathway for us to keep our people here, to bring more people here, is to make something that is special in the sense that we have what businesses need, and that is a skilled, qualified workforce. That is the silver bullet, and we are focused on that. We fired that bullet here in Chautauqua County, and it's already starting to work.
Thank you very much.
In Allegheny County, and not just there, but all across this end of the state, Alfred State College has done well with their technology program in Wellsville. And almost all of those jobs, or those folks that come out of there end up with a job. I mean, their placement's like 90+%. I mean, if you don't get a job coming out of there, there's something wrong. And these are plumbers and electricians and ones picked up in small manufacturing. We have a lot of them that head into the Rochester area. But I think that along with that, and there's a focus on just plain work ethics and showing up to work and all of the things that maybe you and I take for granted as a lifetime of work, but the young people need to have some direction along those lines, and that's actually getting recognized. So in the service industry, some of your restaurants and those type of things, and they're concentrating on some of those issues. So it's nice to see that there's jobs. Those need to be filled by qualified people, and everybody doesn't have a 4-year degree or beyond to fill those positions. It's trades. It's local, roll up your sleeves and get the job done with good work ethics, and that's what we need in New York State, and we can't have the people leaving the state that could fill those jobs for us.
Thank you. Any other questions from the audience? Those at home can dial 665, oh my God. I think I just dated myself very much.
Here comes somebody.
665-1221. Actually, you don't even need a finger, you can just talk when you say the number.
George had a wise guy
my
remark,
gosh.
but I wasn't even thinking it.
Thank you. Next question. Oh, do you have a
thought
question, or are you?
I do.
Yes.
I know I'm not just,
I thought somebody
not just leaning on the podium. This is for both candidates. Governor Cuomo proposes an energy plan similar to that proposed by Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. Many energy experts say that Cuomo's energy policy and plan will undermine the reliability of the bulk electricity power system. How would you describe Governor Cuomo's energy policy?
I think we begin with Mr. Borello.
Yeah. It's a total farce. That's how I would describe his energy policy. It's ridiculous. It's all politics. You know, first and foremost, he went from 20 by 30, where we were going to have, 50 by 30, we were going to have 50% renewable energy by 2030. Then, because he had to compete with AOC, he shifted to 100% renewable energy by 2040, which is completely ridiculous and unrealistic. But also, it's a total scam. Right now, we are running transmission lines to the dirtiest coal plants in Pennsylvania, and this is to back up these unreliable green energy projects here that the governor has been blanketing across our state so he can run for president. That's really what this comes down to. And the reality is this, I can be at home with my wife and eat a salad and tell her I'm on a diet, but if I've got a drawer full of candy bars at work that I'm eating, that's exactly what's going on. That's the governor's energy policy. He is running these transmission lines to provide the power that New York State really needs, so he can point at these little pinwheels that he's putting up everywhere and saying, look what I'm doing for the environment. It's a total farce. It's costing taxpayers millions and billions of dollars with huge subsidies that are never ending. And on top of that, he has created this environment now that's going to ruin upstate New York by blanketing upstate New York with these ridiculous wind turbines and solar panels. And those of you that want clean energy, that's wonderful. There are small scale projects that go directly from your home, or go from a small wind turbine or a small solar panel directly to your home. It doesn't burden the grid, which is aging and really close to failure in a lot of areas, and instead would actually provide real renewable energy directly to a home. But that's not going to put money in the pockets of the governor's cronies, and that's what his energy policy is all about.
Mr. Crandall.
Yeah, just saying we're going to go green and coming up with a goofy idea like that doesn't make sense. There's no common sense at all. There's room for helping the environment. Actually, Houghton College is cutting a ribbon, I think, tomorrow for stations that have to do with electric cars. They've got a NYSERDA grant. They're putting those up. I think, like I say, I think tomorrow is the ribbon cutting. And we've utilized methane off landfills and turned those into a cogen plant. I think that the natural gas, the natural resources that we have here in New York State need to be revisited. Those technologies have improved, and I think that a lot of the energy that we get are from over the border because New York State is putting blockades on utilizing natural resources that we have here in New York State and the 57th District.
Thank you. We have a question here. No.
Here it is. Yeah. Excuse me. SUNY is constantly squeezed as its costs rise, especially through state negotiated salary increases, while appropriations don't keep pace. What would you do about this situation?
We'll begin with Mr. Crandall.
Well, I'm not sure about the negotiated salaries out of Albany, whether it's SUNY or others. And we've looked at each of the counties right now. Our district attorney, I think we're going to be over $200,000 a year for our district attorney. Some of these don't make sense. And if you look at the overall operation, whether it's SUNY or some of the other salary structure versus cost and operations, it just doesn't make sense. So I think that government isn't the best business operator, that's for sure. And I think that that needs to have a look at it. Also, on top of that, to throw out and say, well, let's have free tuition, that doesn't blend and mix well either. So you have to have a little common sense in approaching these things, and I think that's an example of, to keep within your budget, you either have to have revenues go up or expenses go down. And you can't have revenue go down and expenses go up and then shake your head and say, gee, what happened? So a little common sense goes a long way.
Thank you very much. Mr. Borello?
Well, SUNY suffers from the same thing that us in local government suffers from, and that's a state government that has a lot of mandates and continues to put the pressure on while not really providing any real relief. The free tuition is another example of that. But, SUNY has an opportunity, and it's an opportunity to shift the way that they do business. In the business world where I come from, when your business model no longer works, you change the business model. And right now, we're seeing that at JCC. They're shifting towards providing the programs that are needed to fill the open jobs that are here in Chautauqua County. I've had those conversations with JCC and they've responded. I've had similar conversations at Fredonia and not quite as much. But I understand that it's a difficult thing for them. They have a higher bar at Fredonia than they do at JCC. So we need to free them up to do things that work good for their communities. Right now, these decisions are made by the Board of Regents and SUNY in Albany, and they have no idea what's going on here locally. So we need to free those people up to make good decisions so they don't have to go back to all the red tape in Albany to change their curriculum, to change their programs, to better fit the needs of the communities that they're in. That's what needs to be done to change SUNY. Then the college will be able to do what's right for them and be able to adjust itself, right-size itself, and tailor itself to the needs of the communities that they're in. As your next state senator, I will push hard to reform SUNY so we can get rid of that red tape and let each of those communities decide for themselves what's best for those colleges to provide.
Any questions? Thank you. Any questions from the audience? You can call 665-1221. We have a question here. What would you do to change the 3 men in a room state budget process, and how would you do that? We'll begin with Mr. Borello.
I think transparency in government is always a good thing. Albany is always like the 3 men in a room scenario. I think like anything else, you have to shine a spotlight. For the longest time, we've had decisions forced down our throats because people haven't been paying attention. We've had that happen in a lot of other situations here. We fought to stop the closing of Lakeshore Hospital. And one of the things I said at that rally was, that when you shine the light in those dark corners, the rats will scatter. And that's what needs to happen. We need to shine the light on the ridiculous, corrupt things that are happening in Albany with that leadership. I will certainly be a strong voice as your next state senator to call out that corruption, to call out that cronyism, and to do whatever I can to ensure that the people have a voice in what goes on in that budget process and every other ridiculous regulation and law and proposal that comes down. We will shine a light on those things so the people of New York can hold them all accountable.
Mr. Crandall.
Thank you. The budget process in Allegheny County changed a number of years ago, and it's one reason that we have good financial position and that we were able to reduce the property taxes 9 years in a row. And I think that that's what has to happen on the state level. And I find it a little ironic that Mr. Borello sneers at the 3 men in a room when that's exactly what happened with the Republican endorsement that he got with 3 men in a room that I walked out of, frankly, because I was disgusted in the non-transparency of the Republican Party in selecting him for the 57th district.
I get to respond to that?
1 minute rebuttal.
Yeah, so, I know Mr. Crandall has this, this fantasy about this, but the reality is I was first chosen by the Chautauqua County Republican Committee. I then went on to the process that everyone followed, the process that the Democratic candidate was selected by, where I was interviewed by the 4 county chairs of the Republican Committee to become the endorsed candidate. Mr. Crandall did walk out of that room because he knew it was a fight he didn't want to try to win. And that's the reality. And I'm proud of the fact that those 4 chairs voted to support me. On top of that, I'm also proud of the fact that I have raised money and spent money from the people in the 57th district, $35,000 that I've raised in a very short period of time, mostly from $25 and $50 donations from people that believe in me and believe in my message. When you've got nothing to say, then you throw stink bombs, and that's what Mr. Crandall has been doing. He doesn't have a good record to run on. I've got a lot of good things to talk about, and that's what I've been doing. I've been talking about my record, I've been talking about the success we're having, and I'm talking about what I will do as your next state senator.
Thank you. Michelle.
Would the candidates please comment on the World Health Organization's findings that wind turbine noise is harmful to human health?
We will begin with Mr. Crandall.
I think that there's a lot more than the what you outlined that they claim is unhealthy in that. I'm not there with. I can't answer to specifics like that, but I have had spent a lot of time up in Wyoming County where there's a number of wind turbines up there, and you can throw a stone from the town of Centerville over into the town of Eagle, and those in Wyoming County, those have been successful to the point where, and those are subsidized. Like I say, you have to look at the math on the thing. They aren't going to go by themselves. You and I aren't going to invest in those. If it wasn't for the subsidies, those aren't going to make it. But yet those towns and just over the line from Allegheny to Wyoming County, they're supportive of those. It's brought in a lot of money to those particular municipalities and some of the farmers that have paid taxes on those lands for a long time. And that's what has influenced the people in the northern part of our county. So they're looking at that a little bit different than than maybe you are.
Thank you very much. Any questions from the audience?
Do you want me to respond to that, or is that?
I think we're going to go back and
okay.
forth. What is your position on legalizing marijuana in New York State? And we'll begin with Mr. Borello.
I'm against the legalization of recreational marijuana in New York State, but that's not just something I said. I've actually acted on that long before I was running for this position as a county executive, very concerned about the impact of the legalization of recreational marijuana. I worked very hard in Albany in advocating against it, making those that are focusing on it aware of all the things that they missed. You know, the governor was on this race to legalize marijuana during the budget process, and it was an irresponsible, poorly thought out proposal. And I put together several tenets that I presented to a gentleman by the name of Axel Burnaby in front of the County Executives Association. He is the man that actually was considered the architect of the governor's recreational marijuana proposal. And after going back and forth with him in that meeting, he admitted that a lot of what I pointed out was not considered when they put this proposal together. NYSAC, the New York State Association of Counties, went on to present about 50% of what they presented to the New York State Legislature in their official presentation opposing recreational marijuana was the information and points that I had pointed out to them in that County Executives Association meeting in Albany. So I'm strongly against it. The amount of money that the governor is proposing, the $300 million, will all stay in Albany. None of it will come to local governments, but the fight against this will be at the local level with law enforcement and everything else. The social impacts will be borne largely by local government. And I see my opponent, the Democratic opponent out there, sneering out there. So he'll be just another rubber stamp on the governor's policy to legalize recreational marijuana. And I will also say this. We have no idea how horrible this is going to be on our community. Right now, we have in Chautauqua County, we have over 200 sworn officers, and only 4 of them are drug recognition experts, DREs. New York State Police, thousands of state troopers across the state, they have 70 drug recognition officers. We are unprepared for this.
Thank you very much. Mr. Crandall.
Yes, I'm opposed to it as well, and I've watched very closely Massachusetts and the problems that they've had, and in trying to address some of the issues. All of the things that were pointed out, I agree with. And if you look at the budget part of that, which is, I think, driving Albany, where they started out at $400 an ounce, I think that Massachusetts was somewhere in there. Washington is like down to 40 now. They've got more of a backlog that I'm not sure that everybody smoking it could get rid of it. So it's a supply and demand. So that's not meeting their budget requirements. Plus, all of the problems that you have are going to cost an awful lot of money. The Sheriff's Association in New York just came out opposed to this a few days ago, and they were pointing out numerous problems in law enforcement that we would have, not just on the highways, but others. So it's not going to solve anything, but it's going to create an awful lot of more costs and social problems in New York State. We don't need it.
Thank you very much. Any questions from the audience? We have a question here.
What will you do to reduce gun violence in our state?
We'll begin with Mr. Crandall.
Well, I'm not sure that there's something that I'm going to go up to Albany and do to reduce gun violence. I can tell you that I am supportive of the Second Amendment, and I'm a longtime gun owner. I'm an NRA member, recently joined SCOPE, and I am a proponent of gun safety and regulations. One thing that bothers me with the SAFE Act and all of the legislation that has come along, recently there was legislation that would do away with youth sporting, shooting clay and target and that type of thing. I'm an Eagle Scout. I don't want to date myself, but I actually took a .22 long rifle on the school bus with me going to school one time for a project that we had going, and ones laugh and shake their head at that, but that was part of the project at the time. So gun safety along those lines is what's needed. We don't need legislation that's going to do away with that. Bolivar Richburg School just had a nice layout in the paper, and a lot of the folks there that I know, they were champions in a high school clay shooting competition. Very proud of it, safely handling firearms. So I think that the gun violence really goes back to some of the problems that we have, the drug problems, mental issues, a lot of those things that need to be addressed, not so much the firearms themselves.
Thank you. Mr. Barilla.
Yeah, I think the bottom line is that gun violence is not about guns, it's about people. And it's about people with mental health issues. The vast majority of gun violence occurs with illegally obtained weapons and people who have had access to them that have mental health issues. We take these opportunities, it's this Saul Alinsky liberal attitude of never let a crisis go to waste, and every time something tragic happens, we use it as an opportunity to really suppress our Second Amendment right to keep and bear arms, to defend ourselves. And that's the liberal agenda. They say, what are you going to do about gun violence? We're going to have to do things about violence at every level, and mental health issues are not being addressed. Instead, we're looking at ways of taking guns out of hands of legal, law-abiding citizens in violation of their federal constitutional right to do so. And that's really the dog whistle issue that is upsetting. I am a strong proponent of the Second Amendment. I certainly understand the fact that there are people out there that look at these tragedies and think that something needs to be done, but that is not the answer to the issue. The answer to the issue is understanding and better controlling human behavior. We had a huge issue many years ago with drunk driving, DWI. It's gone down dramatically. Well, how did we get there? How did we get to where we were back in the 70s and 80s with all this these road deaths down to where we are now, which is still significant, but far less than it was? Did we do that by outlawing cars? Did we do that by making everybody blow into a breathalyzer before they start their car, even if they've never been convicted of a crime? No. We did it by controlling human behavior and by holding people responsible for their personal actions. That's the answer, is holding people accountable for their personal actions. It's what worked in that situation, and it's what worked to curb violence of all kinds, including gun violence.
Thank you very much. Question?
Yeah. I guess I'm going back to my question because I don't really think it was answered. How do you think that the rhetoric that you have spewed here, and it's one of you, not the other, towards Democrats, liberals, coming up with all these name-calling things, is going to help you reach across the aisle and get funding that needs to come back to this district? How is it?
If you ask the question again, don't you think you're going to get the same answer? So
well,
you're just taking up
some honesty.
Well, you're going to get what you got,
yeah.
right? And so I'm going to move on.
Okay.
Thank you very much. Yes, next question.
We just had a lot of talk about gun violence, and just my question is, would you support regulating high-speed machine guns as opposed to single shotguns, because the quicker the machine gun fires, the more people you kill, and you don't need that to shoot a deer. So that's my question. If that legislation came up where it was...
We got the question.
Yeah.
Okay. Mr. Crandall?
No.
Mr. Borello?
Yeah, again, this is another one of those things where, our freedoms we don't lose our freedoms in this country in a big wave. It's a little trickle, one drop at a time, and that's one of those little trickles that's dropping on our rights. And, I love this argument about how, well, you don't need that kind of gun to shoot a deer. Our Second Amendment is not about shooting deer, okay? This is about two basic things, and that is the right of the people to keep and bear arms, and also to rise up against a tyrannical, suppressive government. And the fact that these folks are out there trying to make this about hunting or shooting for sport, that's not what this is about. And again, this is about controlling human behavior, holding people accountable for their personal actions, which we don't do anymore in this country. We give everybody an excuse because we've had this happen to them when they were a child, or this happened 200 years ago. Whatever it is, this is the excuses that we've given to people and given them the right to go out and do heinous acts and feel that they can blame it on society or on someone else. Personal accountability is the answer.
Thank you. I did let you, if you have more to say, you can say it. You said no and I just stopped you, but you can continue.
Only to circle back, and Mr. Flanagan, who is supporting Mr. Borello, actually voted for the SAFE Act, and I think that I am the one that is going to go up there without, again, being beholden to anybody.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
First of all, I commend Mr. Crandall and Mr. Borello for being willing to go and defend our rights in Albany, so God bless you. You spoke of unemployment, you spoke of workforce needs. Agriculture is one of the primary economic industries in our district. What would each of you do to help grow the agriculture industry and make farming more profitable in New York, in your district?
It's my turn. Yes. Thank you. Yeah, I can tell you what I have done. First of all, I've been a strong supporter of the Cornell Cooperative Extension and all the work that they do to work with our farmers. I led the charge to increase their funding at the county level, $100,000 when it had been cut in previous years. The Cornell Cooperative Extension is a great tool for us to enhance and improve farming in our area. We're also in the middle of something really a game changer here in Chautauqua County. We call it Project Grow Chautauqua. And it's a project that really was my brainchild. With Senator Young, her and I had toured a hops facility at Cornell Cooperative Extension. We talked about the opportunity to help our farmers diversify by being able to grow hops and other grains. The missing link was having a place where they could all bring their supply, one central location, so we create a consistent, stable, high-quality supply of those products. And that's what we're working on now. Long story short, because it's a long story to tell, we are now in the middle of a feasibility study that is being funded largely by a gentleman who came back to town looking to do something entrepreneurial to support agriculture. I pitched my idea of this hops and grains cooperative, and now we're in the middle of this study. It's going to be a game changer, creating this vertically integrated agribusiness that many farmers will be able to benefit from, not just here in Chautauqua County, but all across the southern tier and the 57th district. I'm proud of what we've done. When government gets involved with farming, it's usually with like subsidies, temporary subsidies, or making promises they can't keep. This is actually a sound business idea that's going to transform and support our agriculture industry for a long period of time, and I'm very happy to have been the start of that.
Thank you, Mr. Crandall.
I'm a longtime Farm Bureau member and have attended all of the any event like that and in meetings that they've had since I first became a legislator. It's not only big in Allegheny County, but all across the 57th district, agriculture. We have processing plants in Allegheny County that depend on milk and milk production. Cheese, Cuba cheese, Empire cheese, Friendship dairies. There needs to be more processing in New York State versus someplace else. And the dairy industry is in dire need of that. And I think that the new position that Senator Young has falls right in that, and I think that that can be very helpful for the 57th district. In Allegheny County, we've looked at a bioenergy project, and that's been funded to around $6 million out of about a $14 million startup cost, and that is to take a fast-growing low end like willow products and that, and turn those into a heating pellet. And you can say, well, the world's full of those. It's the extractions from the time that it's put into the process before it becomes a pellet is the real game changer in the money there. Pharmaceuticals, cosmetics, that type of stuff. So I think there's a lot of things that can be done with technology that can help agriculture in this district, and certainly would look forward to exploring a lot of those.
Thank you. I have a question. We're closing now. Do you have a question?
I do.
Do it, because we're running out.
Mr. Crandall, are you aware that the Western New York Public Health Alliance has issued a statement that the health of our community in Western New York is at risk because of wind turbines, and people in Wyoming County are the cause of that because of the increased existence of wind turbine illnesses, infrasound, and other annoyances that have caused many illnesses in these people. And your county is one of those public health departments.
Are you asking a question? Is he aware of it?
Are you aware of the Western New York Public Health Alliance
Thank you.
concern for our health?
Thank you.
I've had volumes of information sent to me about health concerns around wind turbines. And I think, trying to grind me down to where I'm at on wind turbines and other forms of energy, like I say, in northern Allegheny County, there are farmers and those that are the landowners up there that are looking at this as a positive, getting something back from years and decades and actually generations of paying taxes on some scrub land up there. So our position had been to allow the locals to take position on that. I would respect the position taken here in Chautauqua County, but I think that there are other positions, and that's an example of one in the northern part of Allegheny and Cattaraugus County. They're looking over the border to Wyoming County, and they're trying to follow suit, and we have not obstructed that from our position as legislators. We're letting that play out. There's actually public hearings and input going on those projects right now. And I'm sure that part of it will be heard, that position that you've explained.
Thank you. The question was directed to...
I see. We'll now allow 2 minutes for a concluding statement, beginning with Mr. Borello.
Thank you. Again, thank you all for being here tonight, and appreciate the opportunity to speak. When I first decided to run, I actually had said no at first to running for the Senate seat. I enjoy being the county executive. We've got great momentum here, a lot of great things going on, positive momentum. And so I decided, at first that I didn't want to run. But then, under the urging of a lot of folks, I looked at the situations that we have here and how much of what happens here is so dependent on having strong advocacy in Albany and ensuring that we have somebody in there that is delivering that message of what we need here, the things that our values here, what we're opposed to, what we're in favor of, someone that's going to strongly advocate. Mr. Crandall talks about the pendulum swinging back eventually the other way. Well, I'll be there to push that pendulum a heck of a lot faster as your next state senator. It's important for me to be in there. This is not about my ego or being called senator or this is my turn. This is about where do I feel I can be best and most effective for the people of this county and the entire 57th district. And without having that strong voice, someone who's used to going above and beyond that traditional role of that elected position to actually get things accomplished, something that I have a very strong record of doing, we're not going to get where we need to go. That's why I stepped up to do this, because it felt like this is my opportunity to serve that greater good, to continue to serve the people of Chautauqua County and to help people not only in the 57th District, but throughout upstate New York. I'm proud of the record that we have here. We reversed the cycle of decline here in Chautauqua County. We've got people working together collaboratively, more so than ever before. In a short period of time, we've accomplished a lot of great things, and I'm looking forward to bringing that type of leadership and hard work as your next senator. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Crandall.
When I first became a legislator, Allegheny County was in disarray. $5 million in the hole, and we had issues with the Court Facility Act from 1986. We hadn't complied. We had some real problems. The board couldn't get it together. And through time and the leadership that I finally got to act upon when I was put in as chairman, we were able to accomplish an awful lot and take care of things that didn't get taken care of in the past. The chairman position in our county is good for 1 year. So at each of our organizational meetings, my fellow legislators vote on who's going to be the chairman. And I've offered to step aside and let someone take that has like-minded position in moving the county forward. But for 14 years, I have been selected as the chairman. We've made a lot of accomplishments in that time. I'd like to apply these traits to Albany. And again, I am the only candidate that you can vote for that is not going to go to Albany and owing favors to anybody but the people that vote for me in the 57th District.
Thank you very much. Voting is an essential step in the process of democracy, and in exercising our choice for elected office, we affirm our faith in the democratic process. We urge you to take the next step and vote and demonstrate that democracy is alive and well in Chautauqua County and in New York State. I want to thank all the candidates who have come forward to be at this debate. I want to thank the League of Women Voters, Voter Service Army, who helped put on this debate tonight. Tina Rauza, Pat Carell, Percy Bernatz, lots of other people. I want to thank Dunkirk Local Access. You can see this debate in its entirety at dunkirkaccess.com. And the polls will be open from noon to 9 p.m., is that right? On Tuesday, June 25th. Thank you very much. Good night.
I enjoyed the things you said. I really did.